The house sat at the end of a quiet street where most days felt slow and predictable. The homeowner had chosen this place for peace. Tall fences wrapped around the backyard, and behind them was the pool. It was not fancy, but it was clean, clear, and cared for with patience. Every morning, the homeowner checked the water, skimmed leaves, and made sure everything looked right. The pool was not just for swimming. It was a small escape after long days of work and noise. The neighborhood looked friendly on the surface. People waved while passing by. Dogs were walked at the same time every evening. Lawn mowers hummed on weekends. Nothing felt out of place at first. Still, the homeowner preferred privacy. The pool was private, paid for with years of saving, and meant only for personal use and a few invited guests. That rule mattered. One early afternoon, something small felt wrong. The homeowner noticed the pool cover was folded slightly differently than usual. It was not dramatic, just off by a little. At first, it was brushed away as forgetfulness. Everyone makes small mistakes. But the next day, a chair near the pool had been moved closer to the edge. Again, it seemed harmless. Wind could move things. Animals could pass through. The mind tried to stay calm. As days passed, more little signs appeared. The water level seemed lower than expected. A towel that had been left on a hook was now gone. Wet footprints appeared on the concrete, even on days when the homeowner had not used the pool. Each sign alone meant nothing. Together, they formed a pattern that was hard to ignore. The homeowner felt uneasy, but did not want to accuse anyone without proof. There was no desire for conflict. Life was already busy enough. Still, a quiet worry started to grow. The backyard no longer felt fully private. Sitting near the pool became uncomfortable. It's like someone else had been there just moments before. One evening, while checking the water, the homeowner noticed a faint smell of sunscreen. It was fresh. That smell did not belong there. The homeowner stood still, listening to the quiet. No voices, no splashes. Just the sound of insects and distant traffic. Yet the feeling remained that the space had been used. The next week, a neighbor made an offhand comment while passing by the fence. They mentioned how refreshing the pool must be during hot afternoons. The tone was casual, almost careless. The homeowner smiled politely, but felt a knot tighten inside. How would they know how refreshing it felt unless they had been close enough to see it often? The thought lingered. Trust started to fade. The homeowner began locking the gate more carefully and checking it twice before going inside. Even so, the signs did not stop. Another chair moved. Another drop in water level. The pool steps were wet early in the morning. At night, the homeowner lay awake thinking. Maybe someone believed the pool was shared. Maybe they thought no one would notice. Maybe they assumed permission that was never given. The idea felt unfair. Respect should not need to be explained. Still, the homeowner chose patience. There was no shouting, no posting signs, no calling anyone out. The goal was not to embarrass anyone. It was simply to protect what was private. The homeowner decided to observe quietly and wait. If something was happening, it would reveal itself soon. One afternoon, while returning home earlier than usual, the homeowner noticed the back gate was not fully latched. The heart sank. The pool water was still moving, small waves touching the edges. No one was there, but the proof was clear. Someone had just been swimming. The homeowner stood there for a long moment, feeling a mix of shock and disappointment. It was no longer a suspicion. The space had been entered without permission. The calm backyard no longer felt safe. Instead of reacting with anger, the homeowner took a deep breath. There would be no scene, no shouting across fences. A smarter path would be taken, one that spoke clearly without words, as the sun set. The homeowner sat by the pool, watching the water settle back into stillness. A plan was slowly forming, not out of revenge, but out of a need for boundaries. The quiet street remained calm, but something had shifted. The pool was no longer just a place to relax. It had become the center of a lesson that was about to unfold. The next morning, the homeowner woke up with a heavy feeling in the chest. Even after a night of sleep, the uneasy thoughts from yesterday lingered. Something had changed. The peace that had defined the backyard now felt fragile. The sun was shining, birds chirping, and yet the house felt tense. It was strange how a small action from others could disturb the rhythm of a quiet life. The homeowner went through the usual morning routine, making coffee, watering plants, and checking emails. Each glance toward the backyard pool reminded them of the events from the day before. It was not just a pool anymore. It was proof that someone had crossed a boundary. By mid-morning, curiosity and caution pulled the homeowner outside. The backyard needed inspection. Every inch of the pool was checked. The water, the steps, the tiles. Nothing was moving now, everything calm. Yet the evidence remained: faint wet footprints on the concrete, small droplets of water on the nearby chairs, and tiny leaves disturbed from the usual pattern. Every sign whispered the same story: someone had been there, and they had done so without asking. The homeowner felt a mix of disappointment and disbelief. How could neighbors act like this? How could someone assume permission where none was given? While examining the backyard, the homeowner decided to speak to a neighbor who often walked by during the mornings. Perhaps it was all a misunderstanding. Maybe they had thought the pool was shared. The conversation started casually, with small talk about the weather and the neighborhood. Then, carefully, the homeowner asked if they had seen anyone around the pool recently. The neighbor smiled and said nothing unusual had caught their attention. But then, as if trying to be helpful, the neighbor mentioned that the pool looked inviting during hot afternoons. The homeowner's stomach sank. That comment was casual, friendly even, but it carried an implication that was impossible to ignore. Someone was noticing the pool a little too much, too often. The day continued. But the homeowner's mind could not focus on work. Thoughts wandered to the moments when the pool had been used. Perhaps a group of teenagers from nearby homes had discovered it. Perhaps it was adults who assumed boundaries did not apply to them. The homeowner remembered the smell of sunscreen from yesterday, the displaced chair, and the slightly lower water level. It was enough evidence. Enough to know that respect had been overlooked. Enough to start planning a proper response. Deciding not to react immediately, the homeowner spent the afternoon preparing. There were no threats, no angry calls. The goal was clarity, not confrontation. The homeowner wanted to expose the truth without creating unnecessary conflict. That meant observing carefully, noting every sign, and choosing the right moment to act. The house itself became a quiet watchtower. Windows were slightly opened, not to spy, but to sense any movement outside. The backyard gate was locked securely, checked repeatedly. Every precaution was taken to ensure that the situation could be managed calmly by evening. Shadows grew long across the backyard. The homeowner sat near the pool, feet dangling in the cool water. This was a small comfort, a brief return to normalcy. The pool reflected the orange and pink hues of the sunset. The homeowner allowed a quiet smile to form, remembering why this space mattered so much. It was not just water and tiles. It was a sanctuary, a place of calm and reflection. That peace had been violated, but not beyond repair. Patience would be the tool of choice. Intelligence over anger. Observing over confronting. As night approached, the homeowner noticed something unusual. A car parked quietly on the street across the yard. Lights off, engine silent. It could have been coincidence, but the timing felt deliberate. Perhaps someone was curious. Perhaps they were watching the backyard. The homeowner did not panic, but made a mental note. The house had cameras for security, but no one wanted to feel trapped by technology. Observation, careful and patient, would suffice. The homeowner stayed alert, learning from small details. Shadows moving along fences. Muffled voices in the distance, the occasional flash of light reflecting off windows. Each signal was recorded in memory, noted silently. The following days became a routine of careful monitoring. Every morning the pool was checked, every evening observed. The homeowner noticed small patterns. Certain houses nearby seemed unusually quiet during afternoons, as if residents were waiting for an opportunity. Footprints near the gate became more common, tiny disturbances in flower beds appeared, and faint sounds of splashing echoed faintly during hot afternoons. It was enough to confirm the suspicion. People were entering the pool without permission. Despite growing frustration, The homeowner kept a calm exterior. Polite greetings continued, casual conversations maintained, no direct accusations made. This required effort, but it was part of the plan. The homeowner understood that confrontation could backfire. People might deny everything, become defensive, or worse, retaliate. The goal was to find a way to expose the truth naturally, to allow the uninvited swimmers to realize their actions without public embarrassment. A strategy began to form slowly, like a small seed in the mind, growing quietly but steadily. One afternoon, while doing yard work, the homeowner noticed a group of children playing nearby. Laughter and splashes could be heard. None of the children had been invited. They were using the pool steps, teasing each other. The homeowner approached carefully, making polite small talk about the weather and school. The children quickly scattered, apologizing vaguely and leaving footprints behind. The homeowner's heart sank, but the mind focused. Evidence was accumulating. Each small incident added to the clarity of the situation. Patterns were emerging. The homeowner now knew who might be responsible. Even if names were not spoken, the next day, another neighbor mentioned the pool casually, commenting on how perfect it must be for sunny days. The homeowner smiled politely but kept thoughts private. Words could be misleading and assumptions dangerous. Observation was still key. The uninvited swimmers would reveal themselves more clearly, and the homeowner planned to wait for that moment. Each day added more confidence to the plan forming silently in the mind. As the week progressed, small acts of intrusion became harder to ignore. Wet towels left by fences, chairs moved, the faint smell of sunscreen, and slightly lowered water levels all pointed to repeated access. The homeowner's patience was tested, but not broken. Each moment of quiet observation built understanding. The homeowner started keeping a notebook, writing dates, times, and small details. What was seen, what was heard, and what had changed. This was not about suspicion alone. It was preparation, creating a clear record of events for later use. Late one evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, the homeowner sat quietly by the pool. The water reflected the twilight, still and calm, a mirror to the sky above. A soft breeze moved through the trees and the house felt at peace once more, though vigilance remained. The homeowner thought about boundaries, respect, and trust. The pool was more than water. It was a symbol. Respect for it had been ignored, and that needed correction. But it would be done with intelligence, without confrontation, and in a way that made the lesson undeniable. By the end of the second week, the homeowner's plan had solidified. Patience and observation had provided the necessary information. The quiet street and calm backyard had become the stage for a simple truth to reveal itself. The homeowner felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing that justice, in the form of clarity, was about to arrive. The story was no longer just about intrusion. It was about awareness, respect, and the quiet power of patience. The next steps would unfold naturally, and the uninvited swimmers would soon learn that actions have consequences, even without a single word being spoken. By the third week, the homeowner had decided it was time to act, but not in anger. The goal was to protect the pool and teach a quiet lesson, not to embarrass anyone publicly. Every day of observation had given them a clear understanding of patterns, timing, and who might be responsible for the intrusions. The homeowner wanted the next steps to be safe, subtle, and effective. They began researching methods that could reveal unwanted activity without causing harm. That was when the idea of using a safe, temporary pool dye emerged. It was used normally for detecting leaks, completely harmless to people, and would clearly mark anyone who entered the water. The homeowner spent an entire afternoon preparing. The pool was cleaned meticulously, and the water level was checked. The dye was chosen carefully to ensure it would create a visible change without affecting the pool's balance or clarity. It was important that the effect be noticeable immediately but entirely safe. Instructions were read multiple times to prevent mistakes. Patience and attention to detail were critical. As the homeowner did not want the plan to fail due to a simple oversight, that evening the dye was added quietly. The homeowner mixed it into the pool while making sure no one was around. The water immediately changed slightly in hue, a gentle tint that was almost imperceptible at first, but would react clearly when disturbed. The homeowner felt a small thrill. The plan was in motion. There was no rush, no need to confront anyone. Now it was a matter of waiting for natural actions to reveal the truth. The following morning, the backyard felt calm but charged with anticipation. Every movement in the neighborhood seemed louder. The homeowner checked the pool carefully. The dye had settled evenly across the surface, creating a subtle, even tint. It looked normal enough not to raise suspicion, but anyone swimming would immediately show the result. The homeowner felt satisfaction in knowing that the evidence would be undeniable when the time came. The uninvited swimmers would reveal themselves without a single confrontation as the day progressed. The homeowner kept up the careful observation. Windows were opened slightly, not to spy but to hear any sounds. The gate was locked and checked regularly. Any approach to the backyard would be noticed. The homeowner went about daily routines, checking emails, preparing meals, tending plants, but all while maintaining awareness. Each shadow, every distant sound, became part of the ongoing story. The homeowner felt a mix of anticipation and calm, knowing that patience would soon pay off. By afternoon, signs began to appear that someone might be approaching. The faint sound of footsteps on the street, the occasional laughter of children, and small shadows crossing fences indicated activity nearby. The homeowner did not react immediately, keeping still and observing. There was no need for confrontation. The goal was clarity, not embarrassment. Every detail mattered: the timing, the number of people, how they moved around the property. Later that day, a group of neighbors approached the pool. The homeowner watched quietly from a distance. They did not know the dye was in the water, but the homeowner did. As the first person stepped in, the water reacted immediately. The dye created a visible, harmless tint on skin and swimsuits, a clear sign that someone had entered without permission. The homeowner felt a quiet satisfaction as the uninvited swimmers froze, realizing they had been caught. Their expressions shifted from casual enjoyment to shock and confusion. The homeowner remained calm, observing silently. There were no words, no shouting, no pointing fingers. The evidence was undeniable, speaking for itself. The intruders tried to hide, to pretend nothing had happened. But the change in color on their bodies and clothing left no room for denial. The homeowner noted every reaction: the surprise, the hurried attempts to cover up, the quiet murmurs between the group. It was a lesson unfolding naturally, without a single confrontation. By evening, the group had left, their clothes stained with the harmless dye, their faces showing embarrassment. The homeowner cleaned the pool again, restoring it to its usual clarity. There was no feeling of revenge, only relief. Boundaries had been respected once more, not by force, but through intelligence and careful planning. The homeowner reflected on the events, feeling proud of handling the situation calmly and effectively. Patience and observation had won the day. The following days were quiet. No one approached the pool without permission. The neighborhood seemed to have learned the lesson without a single argument. The homeowner continued routines as usual, checking the pool, enjoying small moments of peace. The water sparkled under the sun, clean and undisturbed. The homeowner felt a renewed sense of security, knowing that respect had been restored. This experience changed how the homeowner viewed boundaries and respect. It was not about confrontation or anger. It was about patience, planning, and subtle intelligence. The pool had become more than a place to swim. It had become a symbol of careful observation and thoughtful action. Every small detail, every moment of awareness, had contributed to restoring order and clarity. The homeowner realized that sometimes the quietest solutions could be the most powerful. Evenings returned to calm routines. The homeowner would sit by the pool, reflecting on the day, enjoying the silence. The water remained still, a mirror to the sky, symbolizing peace restored. The lesson was clear: respect must be earned and boundaries maintained, but confrontation is not always necessary. Observation, patience, and clever planning could reveal truth and restore harmony without conflict. The uninvited swimmers had learned their lesson, and the homeowner could finally relax. knowing the pool was truly private once more. The following morning, the homeowner woke up to a quiet street, the sun shining softly over the rooftops. Everything seemed normal, but there was a sense of anticipation in the air. The dye added the day before had settled completely in the pool, creating a gentle tint that blended into the water under the morning sun. From inside the house, the homeowner could watch without being noticed, knowing that the moment of revelation was approaching. The sense of calm was mixed with excitement. The homeowner felt confident that today, the truth would finally become clear to anyone thinking of swimming without permission. By late morning, faint sounds of movement could be heard outside. Laughter carried through the neighborhood, distant but recognizable. It was a familiar sound, one that had been noticed in previous weeks during similar situations. The homeowner peeked through the window and saw a small group of neighbors walking toward the pool area. Their pace was casual, unaware of what awaited them. Each step was recorded silently, every detail noted. This was the moment the homeowner had anticipated. The pool, previously a place of peace, was now a stage for a lesson in respect. As the first person approached the pool, the homeowner held their breath, remaining calm and still. The figure stepped into the water, not noticing the change in color. The dye immediately reacted with the body and swimwear, creating a clear, harmless mark. The homeowner watched quietly as the person froze, confusion and surprise written across their face. The effect was undeniable. This was not a prank or a trick. It was clear proof that the pool had been used without permission. The uninvited swimmer tried to splash and shake off the color, but the tint clung gently, a reminder of their actions. The second person stepped in moments later. The reaction was the same. Their swimsuit and skin began to show the harmless marks, and panic started to spread through the group. Whispered conversations began, trying to figure out what had happened. The homeowner remained unseen, observing the scene unfold naturally. There was no need for confrontation, no need for words. The evidence spoke for itself. Each reaction added to the homeowner's sense of quiet satisfaction. The plan had worked exactly as intended. The third member of the group entered the pool, laughing nervously, thinking perhaps it was some sort of reflection or trick of the light. But as the color appeared on their skin and swimsuit, laughter turned to shock. Attempts to hide the evidence failed. Everyone in the pool now had visible proof of unauthorized access. The homeowner noted how each person's expression changed from enjoyment to confusion, then to embarrassment. The lesson was clear, and it was unfolding without a single word being spoken from the homeowner. Observation and patience had created a situation where truth could reveal itself naturally. By early afternoon, the group began to exit the pool, moving carefully to avoid more dye on their skin or clothing. Their conversation was hushed, apologetic, and full of disbelief. One of them tried to laugh it off, but the marks could not be ignored. They had no way to deny what had occurred. The homeowner continued to watch quietly from a safe distance. There was no gloating, no anger, only relief that boundaries had finally been respected. The pool was once again private, and the uninvited swimmers had learned a lesson that would not be forgotten. After the group left, the homeowner approached the pool, carefully cleaning the water and checking every corner. The gentle tint was removed, and the pool returned to its usual sparkling clarity. The backyard was once again calm, the water still under the afternoon sun. The homeowner felt a sense of peace, knowing that the lesson had been delivered effectively and without public embarrassment. The neighborhood seemed quieter, more respectful, as if the experience had created an unspoken understanding. The homeowner reflected on the past weeks. Every small detail, every moment of observation had led to this moment. The patience to wait, the careful planning, and the decision to act without anger had created the perfect resolution. The pool was not just water and tiles. It was a space of trust, respect, and personal boundaries. The uninvited swimmers had unknowingly participated in a lesson that emphasized the importance of respect and the consequences of ignoring rules. All without confrontation or conflict in the following days. Life in the neighborhood returned to a quiet routine. The homeowner continued morning checks of the pool, evening reflections by the water, and casual interactions with neighbors. But there was a subtle change in behavior from those who had previously crossed boundaries. They maintained distance. Conversations became more respectful, and no one attempted to enter the pool uninvited again. The homeowner understood that the quiet lesson had created lasting awareness. Evenings were especially serene. The homeowner would sit by the pool, letting the water reflect the fading sunlight. Thoughts wandered to how patience, intelligence, and observation could resolve conflicts more effectively than confrontation or anger. The pool, once a site of intrusion, had transformed into a symbol of thoughtful action and personal boundaries. The homeowner felt gratitude for the quiet strength it had taken to handle the situation with calmness and clarity. Peace had returned, and it was clear that the lesson would remain long after the dye had been washed away. After the events with the dye, the homeowner felt a sense of calm settle over the backyard. The pool, which had been a source of stress and worry for weeks, was once again a place of quiet and peace. Each morning, the water was checked and cleaned. Every leaf and small debris removed, ensuring the pool remained inviting yet private. The lessons of patience and observation had shown their effect. The uninvited swimmers had learned without a confrontation, and the homeowner now felt the freedom to enjoy the space fully as the days passed. The homeowner noticed subtle changes in the neighborhood. Conversations between neighbors became slightly more respectful. The children who had previously been too curious no longer lingered near the fences. The adults who had casually admired the pool began to maintain their distance. It was a quiet shift, almost imperceptible to anyone who wasn't paying close attention. The homeowner appreciated that respect, once restored, had a lasting effect. It was a relief to see boundaries honored without the need for further reminders. The homeowner spent afternoons by the pool reflecting on the events of the past weeks. Each step of the plan had been deliberate. From noticing the small signs of intrusion to researching the safe dye, and finally, implementing it quietly. It had taken patience not to act impulsively, not to confront anyone angrily. Each decision was thoughtful, aimed at achieving clarity and respect without conflict. This approach had created a lasting lesson, and the homeowner felt satisfaction knowing the solution had been both effective and safe. Neighbors began to notice a change in the homeowner's demeanor as well. The quiet confidence and calm presence of the homeowner suggested that the matter had been handled without drama. There were no complaints, no arguments, and no public embarrassment. Those who had previously crossed boundaries seemed to understand that the homeowner's space was to be respected. It was a subtle victory, one that didn't require confrontation but relied on intelligence, observation, and patience. The pool had transformed from a site of stress into a symbol of careful planning and thoughtful action. One sunny afternoon, the homeowner invited a close friend over. The friend had no knowledge of the recent events and simply came to enjoy a relaxing swim. The pool sparkled under the sun, clear and calm, and the homeowner felt proud of the peaceful environment that had been restored. They laughed together, splashed in the water, and enjoyed the sense of security that came from knowing the space was truly private. For the first time in weeks, the homeowner could enjoy the pool without worry or distraction. Evenings were spent sitting by the water, watching the sky change colors as the sun set. The reflection on the pool created a sense of serenity, and the homeowner thought about the lessons learned. Patience, intelligence, and observation had proven to be powerful tools. Acting impulsively could have led to conflict or hurt feelings. By waiting and planning carefully, the homeowner had restored respect and privacy without causing unnecessary trouble. It was a quiet triumph, one that reinforced the importance of thoughtful action in everyday life. Over the following weeks, the neighborhood settled into a new rhythm. The pool was no longer a temptation or point of curiosity for those who had previously crossed boundaries. Children played further away, neighbors walked past politely without lingering, and casual remarks about the pool ceased. The homeowner noticed these changes and felt a sense of relief. Boundaries had been restored, not through confrontation, but through quiet intelligence and strategic action. It was a lesson in respect that spoke louder than any argument could have. The homeowner continued to maintain the pool meticulously, skimming leaves, checking water levels, and cleaning the tiles became small daily rituals that brought peace and satisfaction. The backyard became a sanctuary once more, a place where quiet reflection and relaxation were possible. The homeowner realized that protecting personal space required awareness and sometimes clever solutions. But the effort was worthwhile. The pool was now more than just water and tiles. It was a symbol of respect, patience, and thoughtful action. One weekend, the homeowner hosted a small invited gathering. Close friends were the only guests, enjoying the pool and the calm atmosphere. Laughter and conversation filled the air, but everything felt controlled, respectful, and joyful. The homeowner watched the interactions and felt a deep sense of contentment. The lessons of the past weeks had created a safe, peaceful environment. Boundaries were now clearly understood and honored. There was no need for constant vigilance, only occasional awareness to maintain the calm and respectful atmosphere. Reflecting on the experience, the homeowner understood that the situation had been a valuable lesson in life. Respect for personal space and boundaries was not always self-evident to everyone. Sometimes it required careful action to enforce. The homeowner felt proud of handling the situation without anger, confrontation, or humiliation. Patience, observation, and thoughtful planning had led to a successful resolution. The pool had been restored, privacy maintained, and the neighborhood had learned a subtle but important lesson. Even as the weeks turned into months, the homeowner maintained the routines that kept the backyard peaceful. Mornings began with checking the water, afternoons included quiet reflection by the pool, and evenings ended with watching the sky change color over the calm surface of the water. The homeowner felt a sense of security and satisfaction that came from knowing the space was truly respected. The lessons learned extended beyond the pool. They were lessons in patience, planning, and the power of thoughtful action. The uninvited swimmers had long since stopped approaching the pool. There were no more wet towels left behind, no displaced chairs, and no suspicious footprints. Respect had become the new normal, and the homeowner could finally enjoy the backyard fully. The pool, once a site of frustration and stress, was now a source of peace and joy. The homeowner felt a deep appreciation for the quiet power of patience and intelligence. In resolving conflicts without drama, as the sun set one evening, casting a warm glow over the backyard, the homeowner sat by the pool and reflected on the journey. The quiet victories, the subtle lessons, and the restored boundaries all contributed to a sense of fulfillment. The homeowner understood that sometimes the most effective solutions are the ones that do not involve confrontation, but careful observation, planning, and patience. The pool had become a symbol of those lessons, a reminder that respect, when enforced thoughtfully, could create lasting harmony and peace. Weeks had passed since the dye incident, and the homeowner noticed a calmness in the neighborhood that had been missing for a long time. The pool, once a source of tension and frustration, had returned to its natural state of peace. Each morning, the homeowner checked the water carefully, ensuring it remained clean and undisturbed. The gentle routine brought a sense of satisfaction and control. But even with the peace restored, the homeowner knew that lessons learned were fragile. Respect could fade if boundaries were ignored again. So, vigilance became subtle and consistent, not out of fear, but out of care for the sanctuary that the backyard had become. One sunny morning, as the homeowner walked around the garden, trimming small shrubs and checking the flowers, there was a feeling of quiet anticipation in the air. The birds were more active than usual, and the street felt alive yet orderly. It was as though the neighborhood itself had adjusted to a new rhythm. Children played at a distance, voices carrying faintly, careful not to approach too closely. The adults passing by had a noticeable restraint in their interactions, polite and cordial. It was clear that the events with the dye had created a subtle understanding. Boundaries mattered, and respect was no longer optional. Despite the tranquility, the homeowner remained thoughtful. Sitting by the pool with a cup of tea, the mind wandered to the lessons learned. The uninvited swimmers had experienced a moment of truth, and their reactions had been a mix of surprise, embarrassment, and quiet reflection. There had been no yelling, no public confrontation, yet the message had been undeniable. This was the power of careful observation and patient action. The homeowner understood that in life, many conflicts could be resolved not through anger, but through calm, intelligent measures that allowed truth to reveal itself naturally. Days passed with quiet routines. The homeowner maintained the pool, skimmed leaves, checked water levels, and ensured the space remained inviting. Even the neighbors seemed to notice the change. Casual greetings became more frequent, polite smiles exchanged, and an unspoken acknowledgement of boundaries lingered in the air. The homeowner felt relief, knowing that patience and thoughtful action had not only resolved the problem, but it also changed the dynamics of the neighborhood. Respect, once missing, had found its place. One afternoon, a new neighbor moved in nearby. Boxes were carried from a small moving van, and the sound of activity filled the street. Curious, the homeowner observed from a distance. The new family seemed friendly and unaware of the previous events surrounding the pool. A decision was made to introduce themselves, not to boast or lecture, but to quietly establish expectations. A friendly greeting, small talk about the neighborhood, and an invitation to enjoy community spaces, not the private pool, was all that was needed. The homeowner realized that boundaries were not just about reacting, but also about proactively communicating respect. Evenings returned to calm reflection by the pool. The sun dipped low, casting golden hues over the water, and the backyard became a space of quiet meditation. The homeowner thought about the journey from frustration to resolution. Each small decision had mattered. Noticing footprints, observing subtle signs, researching safe ways to respond, and implementing the die with patience and care. The situation had been resolved effectively, not with anger or conflict, but with intelligence and thoughtfulness. It was a reminder that human interactions required observation, patience, and careful planning to maintain harmony. The following week, the homeowner decided to improve the backyard further. Small touches, fresh plants along the fence, subtle lighting, and comfortable seating transformed the space into a true sanctuary. The pool area was no longer just a place to swim. It was a retreat. The homeowner spent afternoons reading, sipping coffee, and enjoying the stillness. The space became a refuge not only from the outside world, but also from the tensions that had previously existed. The satisfaction of maintaining control over personal space was both calming and empowering. Neighbors occasionally walked past, waving politely or stopping for a brief conversation. The homeowner noticed how interactions had changed subtly. There was now a quiet awareness of boundaries. The children laughed and played but kept a respectful distance from the pool. Adults were cordial, but did not linger near the backyard. The homeowner understood that the lessons had lasting effects. The die incident had created more than a temporary reaction. It had fostered respect that persisted without repeated enforcement. One weekend, the homeowner invited a few close friends for a small gathering. The pool sparkled under the sun, clean and inviting, and the backyard was filled with light laughter and conversation. No one was allowed to enter uninvited, and the sense of security made the gathering more enjoyable. The homeowner reflected on how much patience and careful planning had contributed to this peaceful environment. Intelligence and observation had prevented confrontation and created lasting harmony. The friends enjoyed themselves fully, unaware of the challenges that had been overcome to preserve the sanctuary. As the days turned into weeks, the homeowner began keeping a quiet journal. Each day, small observations about the neighborhood, pool, and interactions were recorded. It was not about suspicion, but awareness. Patterns and behaviors were noted to ensure the tranquility of the backyard remained intact. The homeowner felt a sense of control and empowerment in knowing that careful observation and proactive measures could maintain peace and prevent future problems. This routine became both practical and meditative, allowing reflection and careful planning. Evenings became moments of contemplation. The homeowner often sat by the pool, watching the reflections of the sky on the water, thinking about how patient, thoughtful action could resolve conflicts effectively. No confrontation, no anger, just quiet intelligence had created the desired result. Boundaries were respected, privacy restored, and the pool had become a true sanctuary. The homeowner felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that careful observation, patience, and intelligence could maintain peace and respect without force. One morning, a neighbor who had previously been curious about the pool stopped by for a friendly chat. The homeowner greeted them politely, and a casual conversation about weather, plants, and neighborhood routines ensued. There was no need to bring up past events. The neighbor had clearly understood the lesson without any confrontation. Their polite demeanor reflected respect. The homeowner felt satisfaction in seeing the quiet effectiveness of the previous actions. Lessons had been learned subtly and permanently as the season changed. The homeowner continued routines of care, observation, and quiet reflection. The pool remained undisturbed, clean, and inviting. The backyard had become more than a space for swimming. It was a symbol of respect, boundaries, and careful planning. The homeowner understood that patience and intelligence were often more effective than direct confrontation. Human behavior, when guided subtly, could adapt and change without conflict, creating lasting harmony in everyday life. Over time, the homeowner became a quiet guide in the neighborhood. By setting clear, thoughtful boundaries and maintaining a calm and observant presence, respect became standard. The pool was safe, private, and enjoyable. Interactions with neighbors were respectful, and the atmosphere in the community felt calmer. The homeowner reflected on how patience, careful observation, and thoughtful action could prevent unnecessary conflicts and create environments where people naturally respected each other. As the sun set on another peaceful day, the homeowner sat by the pool, reflecting on the journey. The space had transformed from a source of frustration and tension into a sanctuary of calm, respect, and harmony. The lessons of the past week's patience, intelligence, and careful observation had created lasting results. The uninvited swimmers had learned their lesson, and the